Ham and green beans and potatoes, another comfort food I grew up with, and it's so ridiculously easy. I don't know why more people don't make it. Justin and I were talking just during the break, and he said his wife fixes it for him once a month. And you know, it's an economical dish, it feeds a lot of people, and it is true comfort food. And what you're going to do is we use here, it's called a smoked boneless pork shoulder butt. Now that means it's a smoked piece of pork, not cooked, just smoked, so it has to be cooked. But when you see the word shoulder butt, that means it's from the butt end, the lower end of the shoulder. That's all that means. So sometimes you'll see it as smoked boneless pork shoulder. Sometimes they'll call it Boston butt. So whatever it's called, it will be smoked. Now this is interesting because usually what I have bought before is not cooked. Well, this says fully cooked. Something must have happened here that I wasn't aware of, because usually when I buy a smoked boneless pork shoulder butt, especially if you buy it from like a butcher, it may or may not be fully cooked. So if it says fully cooked, that's fine. But we're going to assume it isn't, because this, regardless if it's fully cooked or not, this is sort of a tough piece of meat. It's sort of stringy. So when you cook it at a long temperature and low heat, really becomes delicious. So what we're going to do is we're going to cook it in a crock pot. Now there's several ways you can do it. You can start off with a crock pot, 10 to 12 hours on low, 4 to 5 on high, which is what we're going to do. Or you can cook it on top of the stove. That's going to take a couple hours, especially if it's not fully cooked. And, but that's an alternative too. Or you can cook it in a pressure cooker. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, because that's what I did with this one. But most of you have crock pots, and that's what Justin uses, so we're going to go ahead and use it. Now, usually when you put things in a crock pot, you want to put the veggies in the bottom, because it sounds weird, but they take a little bit longer to cook sometimes than the meat. So you want to spray your crock pot. And green beans, about a pound. You can use canned, frozen, or fresh. These are fresh. And I like to put in like a medium onion, about a cup or so chopped. And it can be a rough chop. Let's just do the whole thing there. Don't want to waste. Now, if you're cooking using potatoes, like whole potatoes, we're going to serve what I cooked earlier with mashed. Go ahead and put those in. Aren't these cute? These are from my garden. Little Eva, who's 3, my granddaughter, helped me dig these up. And then she got bored, so this is all we dug up. But you want a couple pounds of potatoes, any kind that you have. The bakers are okay, the boilers, whatever. And then what we're going to do, we're going to put the pork shoulder roast on it. And we're going to add a little water. Now, if you're cooking this in a crock pot, you don't need to cover it with water. If you're cooking it on top of the stove, and actually when I do it on top of the stove, like in a Dutch oven like this, I'll cook my meat first and then add the green beans and potatoes later. But really, whatever you want to do is fine. But a crock pot, you don't need too much water, maybe a couple cups. We're going to season it with some salt and pepper. Already smells good to me. Gosh, I'm always learning. Who knew fully cooked? They may have been fully cooked for years. I just assumed that they weren't. And remember, when you cook in a crock pot, season lightly at first, because you can always add seasonings later. So you want to put the lid on, 4 to 5 hours on high, 10 to 12 on low. And it's delicious, good to go. Makes a great dish to come home to. That is great comfort food. But what we've done, and I know I'm going to make some of you nervous, but are you nervous yet? Wonder how many of you have used pressure cookers. The only pan my mom wouldn't use, because one of her friends got a mural on the ceiling because it blew up. Guess what? The pressure cookers they have today, no problem. They can't blow up. All the checks and balances in there. They're really great. And if you buy one, here's a tip. Get one that's stainless steel. That's perfectly non-reactive. They're not real inexpensive. This is called a Fagor. There's other good brands as well. This ran about $70, but they use them a lot in Europe. And you can cook in 2/3 less time and all the nutrients stay in. And it's great if you're on a budget because those cheap cuts of meat that are so tough work great in a pressure cooker. If it's in a pressure cooker, it's going to take about 30 minutes or so, that's all. And when you cook foods in a pressure cooker, they're going to come up what we call to pressure. And what it is, you want to lock it, you want to put the lid on and then shut it, lock it in place. And what happens is there's a little spindle here on them, and this is going to raise up. And then you're going to see a little bit of steam coming out. It's not like the old ones where you had all those weights. It's going to be so quiet. It's going to be unbelievable. And you're going to go ahead and cook it. And then when it's done, you have to wait for that spindle to drop. Now in the old days, and you can still do this, we used to take it to the sink and run cold water on the top, the lid. Now what you can do, and I've already done that, there's a little button, you just release the steam. It takes maybe a minute. It's not real hot either. So this steam has been released. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lid off. And when you open a lid of a pressure cooker, always open it away from you. Oh, that smells so good. Not even 30 minutes. Wow. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take out the meat, I'm going to slice it, put the green beans around it. We're going to serve it with some mashed potatoes, so stay tuned. Well, I'm ready to serve my Boston butt or pork shoulder roast that's been smoked and fully cooked. But it's that wonderful cut of meat. And look at this. Oh, this looks so delicious. Again, 30 minutes in the pressure cooker, 10 to 12 hours on low in the crock pot, or 4 to 5 on high, or on top of the stove a few hours. So here's our meat. Wanted to give you a tip, as I do every time here. If you start out with the sharp knife and give it a few swipes, sort of like at a 20-degree angle, like you're slicing deli meats, every time you use it or every few times, that knife is going to stay really sharp. So we're going to go ahead and slice this. These are just some green beans on it. Oh, this is so delicious. Great comfort food. Look at that. And you notice how juicy it is. Really good. So let's go ahead. I'm going to plate some up for Justin. We're going to take some green beans out. Does that look like Mama's cooking or what? Couple pieces. And of course, we love mashed potatoes with it because you've got that great juice. So we're going to serve Justin some mashed potatoes. And I added a little parsley just for color. So you can do that. And of course, there we go. Except I think he needs more meat, don't you? I got a big old stack of mashed potatoes there. We could do it like the restaurants do and then put the meat on top of the potatoes, sort of cascading down. But remember, this is comfort food, so you don't need to gussy it up. Well, there it is. One of my most favorite comfort foods, ham, green beans, and potatoes.